Food webs and food chains are two types of models that can be used to study ecological relationships. Let's look at a couple of other models. Each step in a food chain or food web is called a trophic level. A trophic level, I guess we should probably write that down so you can add it to your notes. Trophic level is spelled T-R-O, trophic level. So the primary producers are the first trophic level. Various consumers occupy other levels. First level consumers are consumers that directly feed on primary producers, like herbivores. When we have second level consumers, which feed on the first level consumers, and third level consumers, which can feed on the second level and the first level consumers. One way to illustrate the trophic levels in an ecosystem is with a model called an ecological pyramid. Ecological pyramids are models that show the relative amount of energy or matter contained within each trophic level in a given food chain or food web. There are three different types of ecological pyramids. Pyramids of energy, which we see here, pyramids of biomass, and pyramids of numbers. This diagram is a pyramid of energy. We see that the bulk of the energy is contained in the first trophic level. Only a small portion of the energy that enters any trophic level is available to organisms at the next level. This is because organisms expend or use much of the energy they acquire on life processes such as respiration, movement, growth, and reproduction. Most of the remaining energy is released to the environment, as this 100% represents the starting energy. That is available to the primary producers. Now, just to live, those primary producers are going to use most of that energy, but about 10% of it will be available to the first level consumers. So when the herbivores eat the primary producers, they only get about 10% of the energy that the primary producers have. But then they need to use about 90% of that to sustain their life processes. So if a second level consumer eats a first level consumer, they only get about 1% of the original energy contained in the primary producers. And third level consumers only get about 0.1% of that original amount of energy. So at each level of the food chain, much energy is lost. If this food chain included fourth level consumers, what percentage of the original energy would be available to those organisms? Do the math. It's pretty simple math. You see that the amount of energy is being reduced by 90% each time. So if there were fourth level consumers, then the fourth level consumers would only have 0.01% of the energy that was originally available to the primary producers. So if there were 1,000 units of energy available to the primary producers, how many units of energy are available at the third level consumer level? Well, if the primary producers had 1,000 units of energy, the third level consumers end up with only 1. What is the original source of the energy that flows through this energy pyramid or through this food chain? Through most ecosystems. And why must there be a continuous supply of energy into the ecosystem? Well, remember, no organism can make energy, and energy is not destroyed. So the source of energy to the primary producers is usually the sun. Solar energy is the original source of energy in most ecosystems. There must be a continuous supply of energy because energy, unlike matter, flows one way through ecosystems. Once it goes from primary producers to first level consumers to second level consumers, depending on the complexity of the food chain, it only flows one way. Matter can actually be recycled and reused. Energy is not. Energy that is converted to heat is lost to the environment. So more energy must enter the ecosystem to replace it. Why do you think there are usually fewer organisms in the top levels of an energy pyramid than in the bottom level? That's because there are fewer organisms in the top levels of the pyramid. Well, that's because there's much less energy available to sustain those organisms at the top levels. That's why we see a lot more squirrels around than we see hawks or falcons or coyotes. We see a lot more grass than we see squirrels. We see a lot more organisms at the lower levels than we do at the higher level. The total amount of living tissue within a given trophic level is called its biomass. Biomass is usually measured in grams of organic matter per unit area. The amount of biomass a given trophic level can support is determined in part by the amount of energy available. A pyramid of biomass is a model that illustrates the relative amount of living organic matter available at each trophic level in an ecosystem. Remember, the last pyramid we looked at was an energy pyramid. This is showing us a biomass pyramid or numbers pyramid. Ecologists interested in the number of organisms at each trophic level use a pyramid of numbers. A pyramid of numbers is a model that shows the relative number of individual organisms at each trophic level in an ecosystem. In most ecosystems, the pyramid of numbers is similar in shape to the pyramid of biomass. The number of individuals on each level decrease from the level below it. In some cases, however, consumers are much smaller in size and mass than the organisms they feed upon. Thousands of insects may graze on a single tree, for example, and countless mosquitoes can feed off a few deer. In such cases, the pyramid of numbers may be turned upside down, but the pyramid of biomass usually has the normal orientation. Those thousands of insects have less total mass than that giant tree, but their numbers are much larger. Which pyramid shows the amount of organic matter at each trophic level? Well, the answer to that is the pyramid of biomass. We have pyramid of biomass and pyramid of numbers that should be added to your notes alongside pyramid of energy. Each of those is important and described